Hey everybody, Keith Dotson here in Los Angeles, California. Tina and I drove in from Palm Desert, where we were staying for a visit to Joshua Tree. It's a few hours drive into the heart of the city from out there in the desert. We came into the city without much of a plan. We had actually wanted to visit the Santa Monica Pier to see the end of Route 66, but traffic and destructive waves caused us to detour into downtown LA instead. I really only had two things in mind to shoot: the old City Hall and Capitol Records. So the rest of this was a wander through parts of LA that most people don't ever see on TV or on YouTube as far as I know. I'll include some walking footage to give you a flavor of what it's like walking through the city of Los Angeles.
Very similar. Thank you.
I wasn't sure what to expect, but I found it to be exactly the kind of seedy, gritty, textural environment that I love to shoot. Given the busy location, I opted to leave my tripod in the car and shoot everything handheld. Some of the ISOs went pretty high, which means some of the shots are somewhat grainy. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the results. We got a late start into the city, and I was concerned about losing my light before I got to shoot the city hall, so we kind of hustled along the streets through the fashion district. There are a lot of derelict old theaters in this part of the city. This is probably my favorite shot of the day. And there it is, one of the most iconic buildings in a city full of icons. I've seen it in a lot of movies like Chinatown and LA Confidential, but to me it just represents old film noir movies with classic stars like Bogart or Edward G. Robinson and people like that. It was built in 1928 and still holds the mayor's office. The LAPD was headquartered in the building until the 1950s. It was renovated in the 1990s and had some improvements to make it more earthquake-proof. I'd wanted to walk down to try to shoot it from straight on, but with daylight fleeting and a city of tents crowding the sidewalks across from City Hall, I opted just to shoot it at an angle and move on to other subjects. I don't particularly think this is very interesting, but I also shot it with a disposable film camera loaded with 35mm Kodak Tri-X, and even though the quality is not great, I prefer this composition. I wish I'd shot it with the A7R4 too. After that, we worked our way back to the car and took the short drive over to Hollywood, where I shot another LA icon, the Capitol Records building. I remember seeing a logo, graphic version of this on my mom's vinyl record albums in the early 70s, so it's a visual that's been in my consciousness for a long time. Capitol was the first record company on the West Coast, and the building opened in 1955. They called it the house that Nat built because Nat King Cole earned so much money for Capitol. That's a funny connection for me because Tina and I sang along with Nat King Cole's version of Route 66 several times on our road trip from Nashville to California. Hollywood Boulevard could use a good pressure washing. I'm not much of a celebrity gawker, but yeah, I'll take an Instagram pose with James Dean and also with this other cool guy. There's the star for George Eastman of Eastman Kodak fame, also important to early Hollywood. It's not a stellar photo, but here's the Hollywood sign. Get it? Stellar, Hollywood. Okay, moving on.
I'm staring in the mirror at the only one I trust. Been down on my luck, so when you see me now I'm up. I'm fresh up out that mud, I'm a diamond in the rough. So when you see me shining now, know it's anything but luck. I'm looking in the mirror at the only one I fuck with. I've been held me down, so when you see me now I'm up. I'm fresh up out that mud, I'm a diamond in the rough. So when you see me shining now, know it's anything but luck. It's anything but
diamond in the rough, yeah, we had it tough, yeah, we had the pressure and the pressure done its stuff. Oh, I'm not flexing when I'm brushing off the dust, no. All this pain and the tears made my shoulders rust. In this life, gotta do what you must, build your value up, gotta earn trust, avoid fuss. Maybe you don't know the facts, you don't know enough. You can judge me where you want, cause every day I send love. Every day I do me, makes me wanna see you, makes me wanna see you.
Los Angeles is known for having a massive and quite an intractable homelessness problem. There are a lot of people camping on the streets in tents. Well, after a few hours of playing tourist, Tina and I went back to our car parked in the shadow of Capitol Records and began the long journey back to Palm Desert. Hope you enjoyed this quick day trip and seeing these sides of Los Angeles with us. At some point, I'll go back to LA and spend some time really digging into the photo opportunities there. It's a huge city with everything from beaches to mountains and lots of interesting neighborhoods. If you want to see my detailed discussion of some of these photographs, stick around after the closing slide. Thanks for watching. Be be sure to visit my website at keithdotson.com. Hey, if you're still here, thank you for sticking around. I thought I'd discuss a few of the images I captured on this quick day trip to Los Angeles. We went into the city without much of a plan, and we were kind of winging it because this California trip was really about going to Joshua Tree, and the day in LA was kind of a lark. In spite of that, I feel good about a few things I shot. I'd never spent any time in downtown LA before, and my last trip to Los Angeles was decades ago, so I wasn't sure what I'd find. First, let me discuss these two shots from the disposable camera. I bought this camera because I'd been curious about it for a while. My expectations weren't high and the results were not great. As you can imagine, the tiny plastic lens delivers soft images with low contrast, but it was a lot of fun to shoot with, especially in places like the inner city where you might prefer a smaller camera. Would I buy one again? No. I decided to pull out one of my old point-and-shoot film cameras next time I want a pocketable 35mm camera. Maybe this Olympus. But I've been thinking about making a video about that disposable camera, so stay tuned if you're curious to know more. Now onto the images I really like from this day in LA. This is the Tower Theater. This includes a lot of things I enjoy in architectural photography. It's a historic, or at least it sure looks historic, and it's straight on and it's symmetrical. But the photograph started out like this. Did you notice the light pole in this scene? Here's my raw file. You may notice that I had to make quite a few edits to this scene to get what I want. Some photographers get really hung up on editing their images, and I try to keep it to a minimum on most images, but I thought this one was really worth saving, so I spent the time making it better, and I make no apologies for that. I don't work for newspapers or Nat Geo. My job is to make art how I see it. Picasso said art is a lie that helps us realize the truth. This photograph is not a realistic representation of the scene that I saw, but it's a better version of the scene that's easier to look at and, in my opinion, more appealing as wall art. In a shot like this, where there's a lot of repeated but simplistic patterns, it's not difficult to remove this pole. I did this manually in Photoshop, not using AI or the autofill function. I also straightened the verticals and removed the text from that sign. I did all this in the color file, which I saved before converting to black and white. Next, let's take a look at this one. I got really excited when I saw this whole theater because it includes so many motifs that I enjoy. First of all, it's historic. It's somewhat run down, or at least it appears to be on the exterior. The design makes a statement. It has a very distinctive old sign, and the marquees very obviously place it in a location. Also, the light was pretty good for my purposes. Look at all the interesting details. A viewer could get lost in the landscape of this architecture. One last thing, I replaced my old worn out low pro backpack with a brand new Think Tank bag for this trip. It's the First Light 46L Plus, and while I don't like to discuss gear on my channel, I will say that this is a really nice bag, a big step up for me, but it should be since it cost me north of $400. It easily holds everything I could want to carry, including my main camera, all my lenses, my small Sony video camera, and lots of batteries, filters, etc. And it's quite comfortable to wear. For me, the limitation is how much weight do I really want to carry as opposed to what it can hold. Fully utilized, it's quite heavy. Here for an idea of scale. Now, I'm not a tall guy, maybe 5 feet 7 inches or 5 feet 8 inches on my best day. One thing I didn't like, though, is that unlike a lot of bags where the compartment unzips on the inside near the back straps, this one unzips on the outside, and that means in the field, when you place it down to access the compartments, you're laying the part that contacts your back into the dirt or on the grimy streets in urban settings like this one. As a guy who shoots a lot of abandoned buildings, I'm often standing in places where I wouldn't want the part that touches my body facing the ground. Okay, y'all, that's all I've got. Thanks for watching.